Good morning, guys. Welcome to Caffeine and Crusade Tier List Edition. So, the Codex Space Marines officially released yesterday, and it's in my hands. We're ready to go. We thought this would be, we haven't done, Bob and I were talking about this, we haven't done a tier list in a long time.
Yep.
And now that the new Space Marine Codex is out, um, barring any drastic datasheet changes or drastic points changes, which I don't see on the horizon anytime soon, we figured this would be a good time to do another tier list. And also, that way it'll stay evergreen for longer. And plus, with the Codex just coming out, I was looking on YouTube. We're actually one of, if not the first, tier lists that's going to be out there. Auspex had one a few days ago, but I know he didn't have a pre-release copy of the book, so he was just going based on what was being said, in articles and whatnot and the previews. So yeah. So Templar asks if we could talk legends at some point. I still use them. We could probably do a legends something or other at some point. I actually just sold some of my legends units. I got rid of a Spartan and an Achilles and some relic Terminators because I don't use them. And I could have kept the Terminators and just run them as regular Terminators, but honestly, the new kit, like, they're so awesome. I was like, I want to run these guys. I don't want to run small Terminators anymore. So, um, so yeah, Neil, good afternoon and greetings from the UK. Beautiful day here. We've had some good weather here in Georgia. What has it been getting cold up there in North Dakota, Bob?
We've been sitting in like the 40s. I'm
Ooh,
happy about that.
woo. It's been like the 60s here. So, um, all right. So, yeah, Sindri, get those libbies out of my Templars. So you notice that we included librarians in this list. We did that only for completeness, and also because if non-Black Templar players want to watch this, then they'll have an idea on how good those librarians are. And for some of our heretic Black Templar players who feel the need to include a librarian when not using Righteous Crusaders, shame on you. Shame, shame, shame. But you'll know which one to take if you're going to be a filthy witch. I almost created another tier that was just called Filthy Witch, but I felt like we'll just keep the tiers the way they typically are. So,
What are you
um,
trying to say, Alex?
listen, Bob, I don't want to hear it from you, Mister. Like I might buy a librarian. Get out of here.
I showed him a bunch of like eBay posts of like librarians, and he's like, "I'm not talking to you. I'm selling off my my implausible nature stake."
So, all right.
I think
So we got a lot to cover. There is we're including our units in this too, by the way, our Black Templar units, just so you know where they fall in the tier. But spoiler alert, most of them are really good. What I did not include is a separate entry for the Black Templar um, vehicles because at 5 points more, even if you're not running the Righteous Crusaders detachment, at 5 points more for a multi melta on them, you're probably gonna take that version of it anyway because it's only 5 points more now, which is a really good deal in my opinion for a melta. So so yeah, so the we're not including those. We did include our units. Spoiler alert: most of them are excellent. But we got over 90 data sheets to cover here, so let's get started. First up, we're just going to go through the Codex page by page. Obviously, we're not going to talk about the non-Black Templar characters because nobody cares. First up is the Captain. So now, for those of you who don't know, they got rid of all of the differentiation between, Captain and Primaris Captain It's now all one data sheet. It's just called Captain. So you can theoretically use your firstborn model that's kitted out with what his options are. It's mostly the Primaris options um, with a couple of additions. So you may have to, hopefully not, but you may have to remodel your firstborn guy with something that can be taken in the Primaris option. So, um, so yes. So let's get started. The regular foot captain. He did lose a bit of his luster with the nerf to the 0 CP buff from the data slate, not being able to do anything. But he's still pretty great. Finest Hour is a solid take, in my opinion. Um, Bob, what are your thoughts uh, on where this guy should fall in our tier list?
All right, I think we should define the tier list first before we do that.
That's a great idea.
So, so S tier, for those that are not familiar with these tier list things, is going to be something that is above average, excellent, competitive take. You're probably going to consider it in every list
Yep.
that you make, no
Yep.
matter the style. A tier is going to be really good for specific types of lists. Most of them they work.
Hmm.
B is going to be perfectly average in most lists.
Yep.
C is going to be slightly below average but serviceable, and D is die
D
in the
is
fire.
stands for don't take.
Yes.
So, uh, thoughts on the captain? I think he's solidly B tier.
If you're taking something in the firstborn, I would say he's B tier, but I want to lean towards C tier. And the reason why is because we don't take a lot of things in firstborn anymore. Last edition, maybe, because we had like Vanguard vets. We
Well,
had different things that could do attach to different units.
so looking at his what he can attach to, it's Assault Intercessor Squad, Blade Guard Vets, Company Heroes, Hellblasters, Infernus, Intercessor, Sternguard, and Tactical. And because he can attach to Intercessor
Yeah,
squads, he can also attach to
that's.
any of our Primaris units.
I mean that is true. So I think we can go with a B on that one because
Yeah.
they did combine them
Yeah.
with this. So
Yep.
now that I'm
Yeah.
looking at it,
Yep. And it is a Primaris picture on the model, and he has all the Primaris options. They basically just eliminated the firstborn data sheet and kept his options the same. None of them really changed that I'm aware of because they did give him an option for a Neo Volkite pistol, which is pretty cool. He didn't have that option
yeah,
before.
we can always adjust later on to.
Yep. Yep. So B tier for now, which brings us to our next captain in chunky armor, the Gravis armored guy. Um, I would have prior to this codex, I would have placed him solidly in C or D tier because to me the he didn't have anybody to run with that he really wants to because I didn't feel like aggressors were that good. We'll get to them later. But aggressors got a pretty huge buff in this codex, and not only did they get a better weapon skill for their power fists, but with the loss of Oath of Moment, Twin Linked matters a lot more now. And in the Firestorm detachment, you want to run them with the Flamers, not the Bolters. So, and a Biologis doesn't really help them. Plus, I believe you can run. Can you run the Biologist and a captain in the same unit,
Yes,
Bob? You can? Yeah,
you
because
can.
he's a captain, right? So
Yep.
I think he's actually worth taking now with aggressors because he's a melee guy, right? And
Mhm.
um, you want to be able to buff that aggressor squad with his melee. So I think he's probably B tier as well.
Yeah, I would say he's probably B tier as well. I would rank him lower than the captain simply because
Yeah.
he's more limited.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's reasonably solid as an aggressor character.
Yeah.
Now there is some play with the heavy impulse, heavy intercess squads now,
Hmm.
um, especially the larger ones, just as a durability piece on an objective if you want to do that. It sounds like there has been some. Uh,
Did we lose you, Bob? Well, I think we lost Bob.
melee.
Oh, there you are. I think we lost you there
So,
for a second, Bob.
oh, sorry.
No worries. So, yeah, real quick, I want to thank a couple of super chats here. Leaks Veeks says for the Emperor, and Alex Media says the Emperor protects and funds your coffee. Thank you both, guys. We really appreciate the support. Um, so, um, so yeah, so like you said, I think uh, the I think he has some solid play in both aggressors and the heavy ints, like you were saying. Too, in the Firestorm detachment, they have something that gives an enhancement that gives +3 strength to all of your melee weapons, and he gets that.
Mhm.
He can get that chainsword with 3 extra attacks, make it strength 7. So, um, so yeah, I've actually always liked this model since they came out with a new version of it, and now that aggressors, I'm actually picking up some aggressors. I might pick him up as well. So, all right, let's keep the ball rolling. We got lots to cover and a short time to cover it. Next up is our captain in Phobos armor. How do you feel about him these days?
He's not as good as he used to be as a skew list. I mean, he has some play. He's nice, especially if you're going to be taking the vanguard detachment. In my peekaboo list, I had him. That for those that are in the Discord, I had a kind of a fun list I played. It was peekaboo. I used him to redeploy my Phobos units. He
Yeah.
still has that play there, but he's not going to go into a typical Templar unit. And since we're kind of viewing this from a Templar perspective,
Hmm.
I'm probably going to put him bottom C tier,
Hmm.
maybe even top of D tier. Simply because like he doesn't have close combat weapons. He doesn't really buff the unit that he's on other than the standard rights of battle. And his range weapon that we typically used him for was significantly nerfed.
Yeah.
He just so I mean it's down damage. It still's got its one shot, but its range is down. It only has precision. It's not a very good take with Witch Seekers anymore.
If you're
So
taking him, you're probably taking him for the Master of Deceit rule for the redeploy for the Phobos and
yeah,
Scout units. But honestly, like with the loss of Scout snipers, and we're not running a ton of eliminators. We're running infiltrators, but honestly, like we don't we don't really need to. Um, Redeploy them. I will say that the Invictor Tactical Warsuit does count as a Phobos unit, so you could aggressively deploy, those and then redeploy them as needed. But I think you're right. I think he's probably top of D tier because he has a use, but it's very limited in a very very specific list. So.
yeah.
So that brings us to the captain in Terminator armor. Um, some folks will have be lamenting the
Mhm.
stripping out of virtually all his options. He now only has 2 options. He can take a combi bolter instead of his storm bolter, and a relic fist instead of his relic weapon. He lost the storm shield. He lost a bunch of other weapons and whatnot. Um, and it's he also took that same nerf with the rights of battle. That being said, he does reroll charges for units that he's with, and if you're taking Terminators, I still think he's a good take because the Chaplain sort of got an indirect nerf because uh, the mortal wounds that feel no pain that he gives now doesn't apply to devastating wounds anymore. So there's less mortal wounds, which overall is probably a good thing. But it just brings his ability down a notch. And that said, I think if you're going to run a blob of Terminators, you want to consider this guy. Where are you putting him in your list, Bob?
Yeah, he's gonna fit in that blob if we're still taking him.
Mhm.
Um, we'll talk about them later in more detail, but they're still perfectly viable on that. I mean, if you're dropping them in, especially deep strike, and get them in semi-close, get shots off if you're taking the tactical terminators or if you're just there to be durable. They're doing that, but the reroll to charge rolls is really handy, and rights of
Yeah.
battle on a terminator squad is also very handy, especially if you're in righteous crusaders. So he's a good take here.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that he did lose his storm shield um, option, but he's still a very good take.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do top of B. I would say he's
Put him
probably
above the other two. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
because we are more apt to take this guy than the other two, in my opinion.
So, Sellers sent us a super chat. Thanks for looking at the whole picture here. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just wanted to give you guys the whole picture. Technically, you can legally take librarians in other detachments, even though we think it's heresy. Most people think it's heresy and won't do it. But if you're not a Black Templar player, if you're not a Black Templar player, you would want to consider those things. So, this is while we are a Black Templar channel, we are also a Space Marine channel, and we want to just help our lesser chapter brothers out. Eternal Crusader says, just clicked why the current Termi captain only has those weapons because GW is going to release another one with a hammer and shield with refreshed assault terminators. Um, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't. We do have the new Chaplain in Terminator armor, and he has a Storm Bolter and a Storm Shield option. So you might be right. Moving along, that brings us to the last captain on the list here. This is the captain with a jump pack, a recently refreshed model. I'm not sure why this guy has a cape because it surely would have been burnt to shreds by now. But besides that, he's got a new model and stripped down options from the firstborn version. He can take a Thunderhammer and Relic Shield, which I thought was interesting because that model does not have that option in the box. So that's kind of shockingly surprising from GW that that was even an option. But that being said, he can lead the new Assault Intercessor jump packs and the poor Vanguard veterans with jump packs as well. His ability hasn't changed; it's still +1 strength in the charge. Um, I'm gonna put this guy in C tier, Bob, because while he's okay, I'm pretty much gonna take a chaplain every day of the week and twice on Sunday with jump pack ins over this guy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I probably will be too. There's going to be some play that people are going to take, taking him by himself, but I don't know why you would.
Yeah,
Um, Simply because you can target him, and he's just going to act. You know, the thoughts of being a smash captain kind of harken back to the days of yore,
hmm
but
yeah,
I think that's not how 10th edition really plays. Hero Hammer isn't really a thing for us anymore.
yeah.
We don't have monsters. We don't
Unless
have
you're Helbrecht.
yeah. Well, he's hiding in a unit
Yeah.
because you don't want to get shot. That's how you protect your characters that do things.
Yep.
And I mean, he does have the ability to do some damage in there, and he's quick. But I don't want him to
Yeah.
get shot off the board.
No.
Um, and like we'll get into him. I'm not super duper impressed with our new jump pack guys, as at least in its iteration with a captain. I
Yeah.
like him, as you mentioned, better with the chaplain.
Yep. All right. So that brings us to the lieutenant. This is the guy on foot. He can join numerous things. He got a points cut. He's now the same price as our Castellan. With the loss of Oath of Moments reroll to wound, I think that his stock goes up with lethal
Mhm.
hits, especially for us in melee. We were already running Castellans, with certain melee units. This guy has more options for war gear, that the Castellan doesn't. I think he's a solid A tier unit.
Yeah, and again, from the perspective of a Black Templar player, he has more weaponry. There's no discount anymore for the Castellan,
Hmm.
so there's no reason why you couldn't take a lieutenant if you wanted to get some additional war gear options over the Castellan, which is a very good unit as it
Yep.
is. Yeah, A tier. We got to
Yep.
lean into those lethals.
Yep. On the other end of the spectrum is the lieutenant in Reaver armor, who is still pretty much useless because the Phobos guy outclasses him in virtually every way. Um, he's D tier to me, Bob.
Yeah, I was really kind of excited about this guy when it first came out, but while Battle Shock is coming back significantly, I saw it play a lot more uh, impact over the last little bit since the balance slate. It just you don't really need it for Reavers, and the be able to be moving around with the Phobos is a little bit better. I like that. So D tier there on him, and we'll go straight into the lieutenant with the Phobos armor. This guy allows you to, what's your strategic dispersal? You can shoot and then move with him as long as you're
Yep.
not in close or engagement range. So this lets you play some movement shenanigans, which
Yep.
plays into that style of game that the Reavers want to play.
He can also deep strike with the Reavers, which the Reaver lieutenant cannot, which makes no
Yep.
sense. Yeah, if I'm taking a lieutenant, if I'm taking Reavers and I'm taking a character with them, I'd rather have move, shoot, move than, extra range on -1 the leadership. So, where do you want to put the Phobos armor LT, Bob?
He's probably still gonna be a C
Yeah,
though,
they're
because it's a
not.
Phobos unit.
They're not. Reavers are not hyper competitive. They have some solid utility, but they could use a little more oomph. So, so yeah, so that brings us to our newest lieutenant, the lieutenant with a combi weapon. Apparently, taking a combi weapon makes you a badass extraordinaire who walks around by himself slaying Tyranids with his bare hands. But this guy got a pretty huge boost. He went from you had to be within 6 inches of him in order to get his buff to now he just has to be on the board. So this brings his stock up significantly because now when you are shooting the objective you choose, your whole army will get reroll ones to wound. Which anytime you can get rerolls to wound now, with the loss of that from Oath of Moment, significant buff there. So his stock definitely went up. I'm thinking he's probably B or A tier.
I won't lie, most of my lists have one. Simply due to, well, lone operative is a big thing.
Hmm.
Then I don't have to take an assassin. It allows me to, because typically what I do in my list personally, and a lot of us do it, is home objectives are infiltrators. But the problem is there's indirect in a lot of different opponents' lists. So eventually they're going to kill those infiltrators, and then you don't have anything on your home objective. That's where your lone operative comes in to hold that objective. Then they can't shoot it. So late game, He's great, and the extra uh, rerolled wound is just extra bonus frosting on top.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. I put him in A tier there, Bob.
That's good.
So, all right. So now we're on to the filthy, stinking witches. So if you're going to take witch number 1 on foot, he'll give you a 4+ invulnerable save. Obviously, you can only do this in not righteous crusaders. I think if you're, going to suffer not the unclean to live, aka yourself, because you're taking a witch, and you're going to take, something like a gigantic crusader blob, giving them a 4+ invulnerable save is actually pretty solid. If you're not a Black Templars player, I don't know that he has as much play. He can join Desolators, but meh. He can now join Devastators, which I would consider, as well as Sternguard. So if I'm not a Black Templar player, I'd consider this strongly for Sternguard or Devs, just due to that 4+ invulnerable gives them a bit more durability.
Yes. So looking at it objectively, the librarian is actually pretty good. Um,
It's a solid data sheet. I can't lie.
uh,
I wish we had something that gave us a 4+ invul.
it's really good. I talked about it in our last stream about the vanguard.
Hmm.
He's very good with those uh, sword brother, or
Hmm.
I'm sorry, the crusader squads. Sorry, to give him that 4+. When you infiltrate them up, but they're just in general 4+ is really good, and the smite is a good way to get mortals into your list.
I don't think it does mortals.
Or I'm sorry, devastating wounds. Sorry, they changed it, but it's
Yeah, yeah. The focused witchfire
yeah.
is devastating
Sorry,
wounds.
habits die hard.
Yeah,
So it is still devastating wounds, so it does a good amount of damage with
it's
that, and
basically
then you also
mortals.
have
It's
yeah.
actually slightly better than mortals, depending on what you're shooting, because if they have a feel no pain for mortals, then they don't get it against this. So, where do you want to put him, Bob? Because I really want to put him in D tier because I hate witches, but objectively, I think he's better than that.
Yeah. So honestly, I kind of want to put him in B tier.
Yeah.
He's he's not a take in every list, but he's perfectly serviceable
Hmm.
in everything. This is objective look, but
Yeah.
most of us aren't taking him anyway. But
Right. So that's that one. Witch number 2 in Phobos armor. I think this guy is D tier because although his shrouding ability, which is basically gives the unit he's with lone operative and stealth, um, really there's like, am I gonna waste putting him with a eliminator squad, which is really the only squad I would consider doing that with? Probably not, especially given how cheap eliminators are and they're only a 3-man. I don't really, I don't know. He might be C tier, but if I'm taking eliminators, I'm just gonna take 2 or 3 units and be done with it and not worry about this guy.
yeah, I mean that's really strong to be able to get that, but I probably wouldn't want to waste it on an objective holder,
No,
honestly.
no.
That's points that I can put somewhere else.
Yep.
So I almost bottom C tier, maybe D tier on this guy. Pro-
We'll put him above
Leaning
the.
more to
We'll put him above the Reaver Lieutenant.
yeah. I mean, it is the ability to give stealth and such, but we can also get that from Vanguard. So
Uh-huh.
if you're in Vanguard,
Yeah.
I mean,
All right. And then moving quickly along here, because I don't want to spend too much more time on these witches. It makes me feel dirty. Um, the Librarian and Terminator armor. Um, Honestly, this guy is like D tier to me too, because if I'm taking Terminators, he can't join anybody. I'm taking a captain or a chaplain hands down over this guy. I mean, he gives sustained hits and a feel no pain against psychic attacks. Unless you just play against all psychers in your meta, like tons of Thousand Suns and Grey Knights and lots of, shooting Zoanthropes or something. The captain is just going to be leagues better than this guy, even with sustained hits. They don't really have Terminators don't really have enough attacks to take advantage of sustained hits. So I think he's D tier in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right, now on to
Yes, I
something.
do want to acknowledge real quick here because the little bit of chat Marat. So captains are very good because of the free strats. So I want to acknowledge that, but we also have marshals, which we have not gotten to, which we are also including in here, which we
And
are,
Helbrecht.
and Helbrecht.
So
So that is a consideration. I do acknowledge that getting free strats are very good.
yeah,
So
yep.
there may be adjustments as we go,
Yeah, we're
depending
gonna
on
go
that.
through this, and at the end, we're gonna kind of make adjustments to our final list.
So we kind of need to see where everything lays out.
So so yeah. All right. So now into something that we do love as Black Templars, chaplains. So the basic chaplain, the regular firstborn chaplain options are all gone. It's just the Primaris chaplain option now, which is fine because the Absolver bolt pistol is okay, and the Crasius is the Crasius. He does give you a free once per battle. You don't get battle shocked anymore ability, and of course the +1 to wound, um, which is handy. Honestly, like if we didn't have Grimaldus, I'd like this guy more, but he's just outclassed by Grimaldus. Like, especially for Grimaldus is what 30 points more than him. Um, Grimaldus could be 100 points more than him, and he'd still be worth it, in my opinion. And generally, I don't think he provides enough of a buff to something like a 10-man Crusader squad to really warrant me taking him and losing scouts.
Yeah,
I think he's a C tier, but like top of C tier.
yeah, he's perfectly perfectly okay. So like, but the problem is, like, even looking at it from a Space Marine perspective, what are you really putting on your units? You're putting lieutenants on there. You're putting captains on there. If you're dedicated specific close combat unit, you have something dedicated close combat, or what have you. There really isn't space to have a foot based chaplain
Yeah.
in your unit.
And
Um,
the other thing too, especially with the way units are now, with unit abilities, for the most part, transferring over to characters like, for example, Sword Bros +1 attack or +1 strength, or excuse me, damage. You have to really, when you are picking a character to go with a unit, it's more about what is this, how do these two synergize together? Right? And if they don't really synergize that well, then you're going to take something else. So, I think he's okay, but he's not great, and
there's
I'm not finding myself taking him in really any of my lists.
there's nothing wrong with him. Like the data sheet's good, but the problem is when there's better things for the things that we're taking.
Yeah, Leak says I wish the normal chaplains could plug into a squad with a captain or chapter master like
It,
lieutenants.
yeah,
Yeah,
that is a big.
I think you're right. I don't think they have enough value on their own, except for Grimaldus, of course. Um, so that brings us to the chaplain in Terminator armor. And while his stock has gone down, I think he's still solidly B tier. With a blob of Terminators, there is still a lot of mortal wounds out there. Terminators not having Power Fist and Thunderhammer's Strength 8 is not the like gold standard that it was before. And It's it's you know, the +1 to wound really helps them if you want them to be more offensive.
Yeah, I agree. That's where you take him. We talked about it on the Terminator Captain a little bit more,
Yeah.
but that's the unit that you take it with. Is
You think he's better than the other captains except for the Terminator one? I think so. We'll put him there for now.
yeah, yeah. We can come back.
So, all right. Now, lastly, and sadly, the chaplain on a bike, who I love this model, and he was amazing in ninth. And he can only join Outriders, who are still awful. So, sorry, boy, but you're going down here in D tier.
Oh,
Yeah. The lamentation of Black Templar players everywhere that this guy just sucks. And
we
he
gotta
doesn't
have at
even buff
least the
melee.
top for cool factor.
The top of D tier? Okay. Cool factor,
Just
top of D tier.
for cool factor. Because let's be honest, when that model came out, that was the model that everyone bought and
Mhm,
painted immediately.
mhm. He's amazing. I love the model. It's great. Um, the only buff to melee he gives is the same +1 to wound, which against a small amount of chainswords, uh, you know, it just doesn't really do it. Like, and then his special ability is for shooting. He gives devastating wounds when shooting.
Yeah,
What?
that's unfortunate.
That's stupid. If he gave devastating wounds in melee, I might consider him and Outriders, but unfortunately not. So that brings us last and definitely not least, our chaplain with a jump pack. Um, so this fella uh, is exactly the same as he was before. He's one of the only firstborn characters to survive the new Codex. And he has his Exhortation of Rage and the +1 to wound. I think this guy is the guy that you take with Assault Jump Pack Intercessors, um, because the +1 to wound with their fair amount of chainsword attacks is really helpful, as well as he just adds on more mortal wounds with their mortal wounds. So if I'm taking that unit, I'm taking this guy with them, and I like him. I think he's solidly probably B tier.
I'm gonna go A tier with this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so if again for those that are not in when I describe the tiers, so S tier is gonna be he's gonna be considered in every list, which I don't think he's considered in every list. But an A tier is considered in the right list.
Yeah.
And anytime you take a jump unit, this guy's got to be with him. Um, More so than even the captain, I think, just because of what he gives you in buffing the jump pack guys. So I think he has to be A. I don't think he's an S tier because you're not taking him in every list.
Yeah.
But he is very, very good for what he does. And he just synergizes very well, especially with the jump pack assault intercessors that came out,
Hmm.
giving him those mortal wounds on the charge. I think he's a great unit.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, our Techmarine. I don't think there's any question this guy is at least A tier. This is the Primaris version box kit. The old Firstborn with the full harness is gone, but you can still use that model if you want to. But I am going to put this guy in A tier as well, for the very same reason that you put the Chaplain in A tier and not S tier, and that's because you need the right list to really consider the Techmarine. If we're running blobs of infantry, I'm not, and lots of infantry, I'm probably not taking a Techmarine. But in like an Ironstorm detachment or a very vehicle heavy list, yeah, absolutely. This guy is baller. You probably want more than one. So yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's a very, very good take.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
cheap.
He's
So,
probably top of A tier, is what I would say. Yeah, and
yeah.
cheap. And the Forge Bolter is a hilarious, option for Witchseeker bolts. because Witchseeker Bolts is no longer one shot. It just gives you a bunch of special rules, including precision. So now your Forge Bolter has precision. So, all right. That brings us to the Apothecary. He is a pretty solid guy. You can res a guy. You can get a CP when his unit's destroyed. I think the problem with him is the units that you really want him in, he can't join, like Terminators. So what he can join is Assault Ints, Desolators, Devastators, Hellblasters, Infernus, Intercessor, Sternguard Squad, and Tactical Squad. And of course, he can join Crusaders and Sword Bros. Um, I think if you are taking Hellblasters, you should consider him though because of the hilarious shenanigans of, oh, I died, oh, I shoot on death, oh, my apothecary stands me back up to shoot some more. So for that, I think he's a solid B tier character, but I don't think that he's A tier.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would almost even bump him down to C, honestly.
Think so?
Because you were taking him in the Desolation squad, so well now you can't do that because they're 5-man squads. You were taking him in Hellblaster squads in Gladius to do that. That's kind of a weird combo, but that's really the only thing that you're really kind of taking him for is that one combo, honestly. Otherwise, he's kind of limiting. Your unit's gonna die before then, so I think he's C. Am I
Super
honest?
Cosmic Space Magnet says literally none of these units are important to talk about aside from the Hammerfall bunker.
Yeah, I was just typing a response to that too.
So, which is, we'll get to that later because it's late in the book.
Solidly S tier.
It's no longer the Hammer Fail bunker. Many of you may remember that for literal years. That was in Battlescribe as Hammer Fail. You're welcome because I put that there. Um, and no, I never changed it. It is no longer the Hammer Fail, so I did fix it in 10th edition. But in any case, yeah, I can see your point on C tier for him. I think we may make an adjustment to him to put him in like the bottom of B tier at the end of this, but we'll see. But I think for now, top of C tier is a good place for him. He really, for us, we're putting him with Hellblasters, and that's pretty much it. Because I'd rather have other characters with my sword bros than him. So
He is very strong with that unit, but that's the unit that you take him
yeah,
with.
yeah.
He's cheap, 55, but it's just like
Well, and he can join a captain or chapter master or a lieutenant. But the thing about it is if I'm running a blob, like a block of sword bros, I'm taking a lieutenant instead of him with Helbrecht
yep.
because I want the lethal hits. I want the extra damage output versus heal a guy. So, in any case, the Apothecary Biologis. He is very good in the right squad, of which there are only 3 he can join. The Aggressors and the Eradicators and the Heavy Ints. Um, Aggressors and Eradicators, especially, he's very good with. Obviously, note that if you're running Flamestorm Aggressors, he's completely useless. So don't take him. But with the Boltstorm Aggressors, makes them pretty silly because he's basically a lieutenant with lethal hits. I think, again, you're probably considering him in every list. I don't know if he's S tier though.
Yeah, uh, I don't either. So aggressors are becoming more popular in all of our lists.
Yeah.
They, for a very short time, were exceptionally good. Now they're just really good. Um, and a lot of times you're taking a biologist to go with them to give
Hmm.
them the lethal hits. Again, like I said with the lieutenants, we're leaning into lethal hits because of no more rerolls to wounds.
Yep.
So he is very good. I I don't think he is something that you would consider in every list because you have to take basically aggressors or uh, less or so eradicators to really get the use out of him. Obviously, so I
Yeah,
think he's kind of a top beer, top
yeah.
B.
Top of B. Really, you don't think he's A tier?
Simply because not everyone takes aggressors in the lists, and I don't. I, even with that, he's competing with the Gravis captain, even though
Yeah.
they both can join the unit on
They,
it.
that can get expensive. All right,
It's expensive.
I'll put him I'll put him in here towards the middle top of B tier for now. All right.
Okay.
So the ancient somehow, I guess because they sell a model, this guy survived getting culled into the company heroes group. But sadly, he got no buffs and is still absolutely garbage. So uh, D tier for me.
Yeah.
And the reason why, if you guys are wondering why he's so bad, it's because all he does is give the unit that he's with +1 OC, which is decent, but his other ability is when this model is within range of an objective marker or within 6 inches of the table. He and he alone has a 4 plus feel no pain ability. If that were a 5 plus and he gave it to the whole unit, he would be significantly better and worth considering. But you know, if I'm taking, you can take him with a chapter master or captain. But if I'm taking a chapter master or captain on a unit and I want a second character, it's going to be a lieutenant. Let's be real. This guy just doesn't do enough. So yeah, he's sadly terrible. On the flip side of the coin, someone that might be worth considering is an ancient in Terminator armor. He also provides +1 OC, and since the captain, the Terminator characters don't have a lieutenant, you might consider him on a blob of Terminator, and that's because his raise keep the banners high ability is actually decent. While this model is leading a unit, each time a model in this unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll if it's below starting strength, and add 1 to the wound roll if it's below half strength. So, as you lose guys, you get more deadly, which helps keep their damage output up. Um, it's solid, but it's probably still bottom of C tier, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
It's not quite D tier, but I mean, if you really, really want to invest into your block,
Yeah.
that's the way to
Plus,
do it.
there's not really a model for this. You have to stick a banner on their back or something. I don't know. I don't know where they got this model from. It must have been a conversion because I've never seen a Terminator holding a banner. So, if you're wondering, in the picture in the book has a picture of a guy holding a banner. So, um, in any
One second.
case, yeah.
Oh, you can go ahead.
So, um, that brings us to the Blade Guard Ancient, who is also terrible. Um, if I'm taking Blade Guard and I'm taking a character with them, it's going to be a Judiciar, who has a way better ability. And this guy, unfortunately, just falls by the wayside because his +1 attack once per game is not super great. So, yeah, I think he's slightly better than the regular ancient, but he's still D tier to me. What are your thoughts, Bob?
Yeah. It's unfortunate because a lot of times we're not taking the blade guard as it is, and if
Yeah,
we are, we're
exactly.
taking something like
The
the
Judiciar,
Judiciar.
stand here and charge me, please, because I'm going to kill you before you kill me. So, yeah. Um, so, I think that does it for our ancients, who are now ancient history, and on to the Judiciar himself, who is still amazing. and he pairs really well with Sword Brethren, especially because they make his Executioner blade damage 3, which is awesome. And he gives them fight first. And then every time you kill a character with him, he gets +1 attack for the rest of the game. Um, I think this guy is either top of A tier or maybe even S tier. Because we're taking Sword Brethren in every list, let's be real.
Yeah. So I think this is a unit that you should consider for every list. So you may take something else based on your needs, but he is on
He's
your radar in
really
every
good.
list.
He's really good. And he's also really cheap. I forget how much he is. I'm looking right now. Judiciar. He
70 points, I
is
think.
unit composition. He is 70 points. That is a steal for what this guy does.
Mhm.
So yeah. Um, so
He's
yeah.
great in Sword Brethren. You get a
hmm
buff to his damage. He's great in especially Blade Guard veterans. In my opinion, that's like the go-to.
Yeah.
Get rerolls. Yeah, it's just good.
Yep.
Really good. Fights first is amazing. It was always a do you take a Judiciar or the Primaris champion? And I opted for the champion. Now the champion's no longer there, so Judiciar every time.
Yep. Yeah, because the Primaris champion is gone. Peace
He
out.
is new in this unit, which we're going to talk about.
We're about to talk about right now company heroes. So, before I give you my rating, which I already know what it is, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this unit in case you're not familiar yet. So, this is basically the replacement for the old command squad, which at one point got broken out into different models, the ancient, the apothecary, the champion, and then company vets. Index Space Marines, they brought it back together. And now they got rid of the firstborn version and made a new version, sans the apothecary. So thankfully he survived. Unfortunately the ancient survived. They could have eliminated that data sheet. But basically, this unit has an ancient, the company champion, and 2 company veterans. The banner guy gives +1 to OC. And when a character is leading this unit, each time an attack targets this unit, subtract 1 from the wound roll. This unit must be attached or have an attached captain or chapter master. If this is not possible, they do not take part in the battle and count as having been destroyed. So this unit is awful, and I will tell you why. Number one, they're so scattered. They don't do well in shooting. They don't do well in melee. They have a heavy bolter and a master crafted. Like they just have this uh, you know, potpourri of weapons, and none of which are cohesive together. It's a very unfortunate the champion ended up in this unit because he was great as a standalone character, and they didn't even get his ability to do the heroic intervention, which is terrible. And then they can't even join once a captain joins them. They can't join another unit, some of these other, you know, uh, units that can join a character that can join a unit. If they could do that, they would probably be worth considering. But as they stand, they're awful. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, yeah. It's a cheap unit, but
Yeah,
you have to take the captain, so it really isn't cheap
and it has to
when you
go
think
in
about it.
this squad, which
Yep.
really hampers. Like, why am I taking a captain for this little 4-man squad that doesn't know what it wants to do?
So
Um,
this unit takes forever to roll out
Yeah, because
on the
there
board.
is the ancient is equipped with a bolt pistol, a bolt rifle, and a close combat weapon. The company champion has a bolt pistol and a mastercrafted power weapon. One veteran has a bolt pistol, a mastercrafted heavy bolter, and a close combat weapon, and the other veteran has a mastercrafted bolt rifle and close combat and bolt pistol. So it's like they all have different weapons. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The models are amazing, like
Yep.
Leak says.
This is a
I may
display piece.
I may buy the kit at one point just for the models because they're dope and use them for other things, but sadly, it's not going to be to run this unit.
Yep.
So, in any case, moving right along, Intercessors, the venerable Intercessor squad. They still have OBSEC, which is sticky objectives, and it's solidly okay. I'd say they're
Solidly average.
C tier.
Yep.
So,
Solidly average.
yep. Let me find
So,
their
I
picture on
mean,
here.
while he's doing it, I'll just comment. I'm like, sticky objectives is really good, but they don't really contribute to what Black Templar players want to do in our lists.
Yeah.
Um, they do have grenade launchers, which are decent, but yeah, they shoot.
I
Sticky
think that's it.
objectives is really strong, but one thing we did not mention in our detachment review, which I overlooked before I had the book, if you are running Vanguard, you're one of the stratagems to booby trap your objective gives sticky objectives. I don't know if you know that, but
Yeah. I think that's the right picture. They're so small.
yes.
Moving on from them into Assault Intercessors with Jump Packs. Now, we have a video coming out on these guys soon. I did not, unfortunately, get it done on Friday. I had some other things going on, but I am going to endeavor to get that done today. I actually really like these guys, and I think they are going to be a solid take in our units, in our lists.
So I'm a little disappointed. We're gonna have to make some corrections to that video because originally
We thought they were
we
going to
thought
be
they
80
were gonna be 80
points,
points or
but they're
85.
85. They did match the, yeah, we thought they were going to be a little cheaper than they were, but it's okay.
Uh,
It's
they're
still,
still a good like trade unit, so they don't have as much oomph as say the assault squads did.
mm,
Um, so those of us that are
they lost the
remembering
Eviscerator,
the
which
yeah,
is unfortunate, but the Sergeant can still take a Power Fist, which is
but
nice.
they do put out those mortal wounds,
Yep,
which is really good,
yep.
which is a good way to combo with your chaplain, which we talked about,
hmm
and you can take out half of a unit just simply by those two things.
Well, and in Righteous Crusaders too, like don't forget with a character leading them, we can give them another vow. So we can give them sustained hits or lethal hits or something along those lines and kind of help them out there.
Yep. So I mean, they don't get the rerolls like the assault intercessors do, but the mortal wounds I almost would rather take because they're faster and that'll help them out when they get to something that they want to clear out real quick. You can take them in 5-man units just as a quick harassment capture unit
hmm
to get secondaries, or you could take them as a bigger unit.
Yeah.
I think they're solid.
Yep. I put them in B tier. So, speaking of B tier, Assault Intercessor squads, the Foot guys, I think are also solidly B tier. They do get that rerolls to wound when on an objective, which went up in value because of the Oath of Moment nerf. So I think that they are pretty much if you're trying to take a large block of dudes, they're pretty much outclassed by Primaris Crusaders, who are cheaper and better. But as like a 5-man, like drop them off on an objective kind of thing, they're okay. I think they're B tier, maybe top of C.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay,
They're solid for what they do.
yeah. All right, heavy intercessors. These guys finally don't suck, but I don't think they're also super great. Um, For me, I'm really not considering them in any of my lists. So for me, they're C tier, but they do have play. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I want to like them. Um, I want to like them. I have considered them in several of my lists. The problem is they compete with infiltrators, which are just so good that even though they're super, super durable, they do have guns that are actually worthwhile on
Hmm.
here. And in the right detachment, like Vanguard, they're like basically unkillable.
Hmm.
I can't take them over infiltrators, which is a
Yep.
problem. And if I'm not taking infiltrators, which I always am, I'm probably taking Primaris Crusader squads.
Yep.
And I don't know, I just
They don't fit our style. If I'm an Imperial Fist player, I'm probably taking them, or even Salamanders, um, or Iron Hands. But as Black Templars, I think they're solidly C tier.
I
So
would say top of C tier.
yeah, that's where I put them.
But they're priced to move now.
Yeah.
They are good. I just struggle against the other options to take them.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree with that. All right. So that brings us to the Incursor Squad. Now, these guys lost Infiltrate, which they didn't have in the index either, just to preface this. It's not a change, it's a change from ninth. But they did gain their multi-spectrum array. Um, Again, from ninth, not from 10th. They're unchanged from the index to this. But just so you, in case you weren't running them or weren't aware, when they shoot a unit, you get +1 to hit that unit for the rest of your army, which is helpful. They have scouts. Um, I think my problem is I'm not taking them over infiltrators, and I'm struggling to include them in my list. So I'd like to say they're an A tier unit, but I really feel like they're more B tier.
Yeah, I would more apt to take them than the heavy intercessors simply because of the ability to give +1 to hit.
Hmm.
But again, infiltrators exist,
Hmm.
and
And
I
and
can't.
and infiltrators exist. so so yeah, I
I mean,
think
I'm being straight up and honest. I don't want to push you guys to infiltrators. The unit is very good. You taking one of them to get a +1 to hit is very good, especially if you're a shooty unit. That's
yeah,
very, very or shooty list. Very good. Pop it on something that's difficult to hit. It's great if you are playing those sneaky Eldar with their minus to hits and things of that nature.
yep.
Balances it out, but I
I
mean,
think
infiltrators.
B tier
I
is kind of where we're putting them.
Yeah, B tier.
All right. So speaking of infiltrators, I don't think there's any question that these guys are S tier.
Yes. The
Denying deep strike to 12 inches, being able to infiltrate, and put them wherever you need to go, and getting a feel no pain for free is amazing. So you also can take the comms array in addition to the gauntlet, which every time you target them with a stratagem, which you aren't going to be doing very often, but maybe you need to keep them alive and you give them AOC or something. On a 5+, you get that CP back.
Yep.
So it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Very, very durable. And if you're not in the Righteous Crusaders, because most of us are going to be taking up hold as standard and then
Yeah.
using fervent acclamation, this is a very good unit. It
Yeah.
basically gives you a vow for free on that unit.
Yep.
And I mean,
There, you should have one in every list.
yeah,
Period.
at least one. At
Yep.
least one.
Yep. So that brings us to Tactical Squad, whose ability did change. It used to be that they could fall back and shoot. They can no longer do that. Instead, they get combat squads, so that 10-man minimum can become 2 5-mans. Honestly, there is zero reason for us to take this unit over Firstborn Crusaders. There's nothing they do that Crusaders don't do better or cheaper. And even if you're not Black Templar, I don't see them as really anything other than D tier, although they're better than most of these units here.
Yes, but they can't be higher than a chaplain simply because of brutal cool.
No, or
Yeah.
I think the Phobos Captain is better than them too, so I'm gonna put them below there.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you
Edmund
get
says
weapons, but
the Terminator Ancient came from the Space Marine Hero Season 2 loot boxes. Um, so thank you. Um, it's like 120 on eBay, so I guess I won't be buying one. So,
yeah, they were talking about that a little bit earlier.
yep. Neil asks, would you put a Judiciar with PCS? Probably not. Just because I think I'd rather have Scout, and if I have a giant blob of them, I probably would rather have Grimaldus. And I think he's better with Sword Bros. So if I'm gonna take one, I'm sticking him with my Sword Bros because um, that gives them that crucial fights first, but also they buff him too, right?
Yep.
So, Scouts. Scouts got a new kit finally, where we'll finally be rid of those horrid heads that were in the old Scout box and the very, very small Marines. However, they did lose a data sheet. They lost the Sniper Scout data sheet, and instead you can take one Sniper Scout in this squad. I still think they're a solid unit. They have the guerrilla tactics ability that they did previously, which allows you to just plop them into strategic reserves mid game. They also have infiltrators and scout 6 inches. I think this is probably another solid B tier unit, maybe A tier.
I think you're undershooting them a little bit. I think you're undershooting.
So,
Yes. So you don't take them for they're kind of like infiltrators in they're a utility unit. So how many times have all of us gotten to the end of our list and we have 60 points left over and we're like, what are we going to take?
that's true. They did get a
How
points drop. Now they're 55 points, which is really
and
cheap.
55 points for something that can infiltrate, it can scout, it does have the ability to put out some damage, incidental damage. They got heavy bolter and the the
Yeah.
sniper rifle or the missile launcher, and it can bounce around. So I think this you have to consider them in every list. I think
Really?
because
Okay.
I would say yes because everyone has leftover points, and I
Yeah.
mean
Yeah. And they're super cheap.
55 points.
55 points is really cheap. I forgot that they had dropped in 55 points.
And if
Yeah.
they die, who cares? And if they don't die, you're bouncing them around all over the board for secondaries.
Yep. That's a good point. And I'm glad that you think so highly of them because I actually really want to like them. I have some of they are the older scouts, but I do want to get several boxes of these anyway because I want to have different poses for my neophytes and be able to run them as a squad. And if I'm not running all my neophytes, I can use those models too. So yeah. So you think S tier,
I would say bottom of F tier, top of A minimum.
Yeah. Okay.
I honestly, they're gonna be in a lot of lists simply
So
just because.
Seller says, "Too bad we can't take striking scorpions too, because you have to buy them too." Yeah, for now, because the scouts are being released in a kill team box. Fortunately, I have a friend who plays Eldar, so I'm splitting that box with him. Um, yeah, moving on. Blade Guard veterans. Um, I, it's
Solidly B.
solid. That's what I'm thinking. Um, I think they're good, but also Sword Bros are just better in almost every way.
It's a
So
good data sheet. We've talked
it's a
about
good
this
data sheet.
before.
Yeah.
They're good
Where
data
in B
sheet.
do you want to put them there? B is getting quite full.
Well, it's probably gonna get really full.
Yeah. Yeah.
But um top third probably. They're
It's above the
I don't
captain.
have to like. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean
They're
they're
still
good.
decent as like a little 3-man, like, here, I'm gonna plop you on an objective and not die.
The only thing I don't like about them is they have to be taken in either 3-man or 6-man. So if you take them in 6-man, they can't get character support in an impulsor,
Hmm.
which is annoying because you want
You want
that
character support.
Judiciar with them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Otherwise, you have to walk them, which is not the worst thing. I mean, they do have the 6-inch move, they do have storm shields, but
Yeah.
like that means they're slow.
Yeah.
And they're still decent. I
Yep.
like them.
All right. So next up, they removed the foot version of this, but we have Vanguard veterans with jump packs, and sadly, they're probably the worst unit in the Codex. Well, except maybe company heroes. Um, they're terrible. They changed the name of their awful weapon. I guess they got tired of Bob and I making fun of their rusty heirloom weapons. But now it's a Vanguard veteran weapon, and it's still the same garbage profile it was before. Don't even bother. Put them on the shelf. I'm sorry, guys. I know it was, a big meme among us for a long time to, have you let Vanguard veterans into your heart? Let's run 30 of them in a list. Those days are sadly over. So, anything else you want to say about them, Bob?
No, I mean some skew lists have been using them, but
Bob's too busy
yeah,
crying in his hands about them.
yeah.
Um, next up is Sternguard Veteran Squad. These guys had a pretty huge glow up when they came into 10th. They've got some additional options now with the Codex, which is awesome. The Sergeant can take some melee options, including a Power Fist, which is awesome. Why would you not take a Power Fist? Note that you cannot take one of the special melee options if you have a Combi-weapon, which you're probably taking the bolt rifles anyway, because in my opinion they're better. The math works out to be better for virtually everything. Um, so, grab that Power Fist and that Sternguard rifle, and off you go. They did get their ability changed. They used to, when you killed a unit, you could shoot again with them. But now it is whenever they target your Oath of Moment unit, you reroll a wound roll of 1. So I think it's kind of a side grade. It's nice that they can get rerolls to wound, which are now harder to come by. Um, but they lose a little bit of burst DPS. I still think they're an A tier unit though.
I'm gonna have to disagree a little bit slightly. I think they're a B tier, and the reason why is this: like they do have decent weaponry. They have AP on it. They can get devastating wounds. All of that fun jazz
Hmm.
with them. They're cool models, but most games were putting Oath of Moment on something that we really want to kill, right?
Hmm.
Sternguard aren't a unit that you're targeting a unit that you really want to kill. They're targeting a unit that is a screen unit or a small 5-man unit that's holding an objective or something you're trying to whittle wounds off of something. That's what we're targeting with them. So in my opinion, in my experience, they probably aren't targeting the Oath target. So that hits them a little bit differently for me. What I used to use them for is they plink off the final wounds of what something else. I save them, um, plink off the last few wounds of whatever it is to finish them off, and then get another shooting. So I made them a little bit more durable. Now
Yeah.
they basically, in my opinion, that's a nerf. Um, Simply because I'm not going to be targeting that Oath
Yeah.
on the target that I want them to hit. I mean, you're not shooting them at a big block of Dark Angel Terminators,
Yeah.
so,
I
which is
mean,
probably going to be the old
maybe.
target or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe you will now. I don't know. For now, I'm gonna put them at the bottom of A tier.
That's fine.
So, All right. Moving on. Infernus Squad. These guys are unchanged from the index. Um, I think they have some serious play in the Firestorm detachment. But beyond that, I think there's just other units I'm going to take over them. Probably top of C tier. Or do you think they should be more like bottom of B tier?
See,
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice that they give the battle shock. We did the math with the Firestorm. I had Alex math it out because he's more of a mathematician than I. I mean, against Primaris Marines, I think a full 10-man squad with the full Firestorm stratagem, which
Mhm.
gives them devastating wounds. I think they did 6.7 damage.
I don't remember what the numbers were.
I think that's what I looked at it before we got on. It was like 6.7
Yeah.
wounds. So I mean, it's not even that much. But if it's against like a horde unit, then it's like millions of damage. But
Yeah.
let's be
So,
honest, 40% of the meta is Space Marines. So
yep. So speaking of those aggressors, here they are, and it should be no surprise that we've already talked about them, that they are definitely an S tier unit.
yeah, I'm putting them. You should consider them for every list. I'm gonna
Yep.
put them in bottom S tier. I would say almost the top if they were still 100 points each, but they did get a little bit of a nerf, 20 points
Yeah.
for 6-man. But these guys are great. They
Hmm.
combo really well with the Biologis. You can give them the Gravis Captain. In certain styles, the Flamestorm unit is good. So normally you're going to take the Boltstorm. So,
Yeah.
but in the Flamestorm, get that Gravis Captain on there, and then you're getting free Firestorm stratagems,
Yep.
um, which is normally 2 CP. So they can do a ton of damage. They combo well, even in Righteous Crusaders, because you can give them additional AP in close combat. They have a buff to their power fists,
Yep. They now hit
and
on
it's twin
threes.
linked.
It's now, yeah, now it's just a straight up better power fist. Previously it hit on fours, now it hits on threes, and it's twin linked. Really, really good. The points cost increase was justified for them. They would have been a little too cheap, I think. So,
Yeah,
all right, moving on. Reavers. I want to like this unit, but they don't quite have the same utility as Inceptors do, and they really kind of require a character to do it. I think they are probably a C tier unit.
yeah. My excitement with them is kind of dampered a little bit.
I'm gonna put them
The,
above Infernus Marines though, because I think they're almost good enough, just not quite. So, all right, moving on. Terminator Assault Squad. These guys are, I think, with the Thunderhammers, actually mostly got a buff with the Devastating Wounds change. And the reason I say mostly got a buff is the only thing that it's really a nerf against is the occasional spillover damage and the uh, against one wound models. Because now their Thunderhammer's Devastating Wounds ignore the stuff like Custodes, feel no pain for mortals. However, the downside is losing rerolls to wound on Oath of Moment really, really hurts these guys. So, where do you want to put them, Bob?
I still think that they're a very good unit. They're very durable.
Mm,
They can still be the most annoying thing that your opponent has to deal with, especially if you're taking the Thunderhammer variety.
hmm
I, with that being said, the Lightning Claws can be really good.
hmm
It's a good way to to get a lot of lightning claws, and that combos really well uh, with, for example, the Terminator Ancient. Um, but that would be, I think it's a solid A.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that.
They still have a lot of play.
All right. Um, so that brings us to the regular Terminator squad. By the way, both of these got points drops in the new Codex or with the new MFM. Terminator assault squads are like 190, I think now, and Terminators are 185. So yeah, I think same thing. Regular Terminators are a solidly an A unit because of all the things you just mentioned. Plus, these guys have guns, and you can get some crack missile shots in there. I think that's the best ranged weapon to take with them, and it definitely makes them a good, durable, worthwhile unit. So,
Yeah, I would still probably take them underneath the Assault Terminator, even though they have the
so
guns.
yeah,
But because ultimately, when I've done the math on it, that they don't contribute a ton of extra damage, but it is nice that they can shoot.
yep,
But Power Vests do, on average, a little bit more damage,
mhm.
but they lose the durability that you
The
are
extra
really
wound.
probably taking the the Terminators for. So
Yeah. All right. One of my previous favorite units, Womp Womp, Centurion Assault Squads, did not get any better, sadly, and they are still pretty much in D tier.
yeah,
Too expensive for what they do and not enough damage output. Everything is nerfed from them. So,
but their counterpart, the Devastator Squad, I think got a buff. So
so they are now
they are cheap at 175.
mhm.
So
Each
if
time
you
each time a model makes a range attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. If it's within range of an objective marker, you can reroll a hit roll instead. So they're definitely better than the assault versions now, which is kind of opposite of what it's been in the past. Um, I still don't think they're a great unit. Um, I'm hesitant to put them above D tier, to be honest, over our other options.
so hear me out. Am I taking them in a list? Probably not, but it's a solid sheet if you want a foot based um, unit, honestly. So you get rerolls. So if you're taking the las cannons and the missile launchers, you have a rerollable one on your las cannon, which
hmm
is firing the one shot, which is twin linked, which we no longer have.
Reroll some wounds.
Oaths.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a strength 12, AP3, and a D6 plus 1. So, in my opinion, this is a good way if you're taking something like Iron Storm, a good take. Um,
I feel like I'd rather
potential
have las cannon devs over these guys, though. But they are more durable. I mean,
way more durable.
where do you want to put them?
Bottom of C.
Wow.
I know. I'm not arguing for a B tier or A tier here, but
Wow.
like I think
I'm still
it's
shocked, but okay. We'll put them there for now.
I would at least consider them.
So, yeah, so on to the Invictor Tactical Warsuit. Now we're getting to the walkers. This thing did not change. It still has the highest strength melee weapon in all the land at strength 14, which is humorous because tank shock is based on the strength of your weapon. So that means he's going to roll 16 dice against almost everything for tank shock, which is hilarious. Um, he's still really good. He's cheap. He went down 10 points. He's 140 points now. This thing is A tier, or if not S tier, in my opinion.
I think he's still an A tier.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm gonna put him
He,
above
he
the Terminators because I think
yeah,
he's
he's a good distraction Carnifex. He does
yep
his weapons are great. He has a plethora of them. Um, you're probably not going to utilize the Vanguard support a ton,
yeah
um, because you're not going to have too much Phobos in your list, but he's still very good.
hmm
Um, he doesn't have the 2+ save of the Redemptor chassis does, but he's still
he's a lot
got 12
cheaper.
wounds,
So
and he's much cheaper.
he
Like
also has
unless you're talking about the
Scout
Ballistas.
8 inches. So yeah. The Brutalis Dreadnought is our next candidate. I want to really like this guy. He just doesn't do a ton. His guns are mediocre, and his his melee is good but not great. He's also one of the cheaper Redemptor chassis dreadnoughts, um, coming in between the Ballistas and the uh, regular Redemptor. Um, I think he's probably B tier.
Yep. I, I think he's B tier. He'll fit into the right list, um,
Yeah.
but you're probably not taking a bunch of them. But it is interesting that his weapons do have twin linked, which is good for
Which is
us.
helpful. Yep.
So that's something to note. Um, Plus, he gives mortal wounds on the charge, which is
hmm
good.
hmm
He's going to be especially good in the Firestorm detachment, so to make his meltas even better.
hmm Yep.
Um, but yeah,
So, yeah, the regular Dreadnought. He's had many data sheets over the years, and they've all been consolidated into just now the regular old Dreadnought.
sorry,
Um,
crazy tacos.
yep, yep, indeed. Um, honestly, I, I, I want to like him because I love Dreadnoughts. But sadly, he's just too expensive for what he does. He's 135 points, and for 5 points more, I'd rather have an Invictor, to be honest,
Or
um,
ballistas.
or a Ballistas. Um, I think he's C tier,
Yeah,
maybe.
bottom,
Yeah, yeah,
bottom.
bottom of C tier. Um, the Redemptor. This guy is definitely A tier, maybe even S tier. He's really durable with that -1 damage. And he's come down again in points. He's now only 200 points.
Yes, he did come down in points. He's very durable. He's hard to deal with, but losing rerolls to wounds really hurt him.
True.
So if you're not taking the lieutenant with a combi-weapon, shooting at something on an objective,
hmm
he is dampered a little bit. So even the uh, your plasma, which has strength 9, if overcharged, when you're shooting it at a vehicle, you really wanted to have that rerolls if
hmm
you're shooting at something tougher.
Yeah.
Um, he was already going to blast like infantry, no problem, but he's going to be really very good in the Iron Storm list,
Yeah.
where he gets that lethal, so
Yep.
that makes him back, gives it essentially back to him with the rerolls. Um, I think he's an A. A very solid A pick here towards the top, but he's not. I would have normally given him an S, but
Yeah.
the way Oath is now, I
Yeah.
can't reliably give him the rerolls. He's not quite as good. He doesn't feel as nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that assessment. Um, next up is the Ballistas.
He's honestly that's very good. It's very good. 140 points.
Yep. He's
Um,
got he's got some solid options.
when we did
His guns are pretty decent. He did make an honorable mention in our I think it was the honorable mention, or did he make the list? I can't remember.
He was an honorable mention, but
Yeah.
that was before he got a massive point decrease.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it was 25 points.
Something like that. Yeah, he's only 140, so um, and probably everybody has him because he was in the Leviathan box. So um, you know,
Even I didn't complain about building that model
it
because
was it was really easy,
it was like
and he
10
looks good.
pieces.
Yeah. Well, and he looks good. Like unlike the easy to build Redemptor, which looks like he's just like hunched together, this guy actually looks like he's a regular Redemptor chassis that was posed and stuff. So um, I think he's probably A tier.
Yeah, and he's very good in uh,
The Iron Storm.
Iron Storm.
Hmm.
But he's good in any list. He's good in Vanguard because you're going to be keeping him outside of 12 inches.
Hmm.
So he's he's
He's good in
what you
Righteous
take.
Crusaders with a Feel No Pain.
Yeah, absolutely. He is probably what you take if you want to be more MSU with your list because he's not going to get the rerolls that you're going to be seeing with like the Lancer, but you save 25 points on it and you can
Yeah.
take more of them, more stuff.
Yep.
This is the MSU anti-vehicle, anti-monster take.
Yep. All right. So next up is Suppressors. These guys can hand out a -1 to an enemy unit. They're fast. Their gun got a strength buff from 9th edition. It's now strength 8. Um, but beyond that, they do deep strike still. I
Yep.
think in the right list, they're pretty decent. I forget how many points they are. They got a points decrease.
105
Suppressors,
points.
suppressor squads. Yeah, no, they are
105.
85 now.
85? I thought they were
Yes,
105. Maybe
they
I'm
are.
thinking of
They are 85. They used to be 105. They are 85 points now. So pretty cheap for what they bring. Where do you want to put them?
I still think they're C though because
Yeah,
of it competes with a lot of stuff. If you're running and you have like 85 points left over, then they're decent tape because -1 to hit is pretty good.
I think they're
Um,
towards the top of C though.
yeah,
So,
yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good selection,
yep,
to debuff something, especially if you're fighting like Tau or something like that. Um, Something that wants to be static and shoot you.
yeah,
They're a good take. So if that, like if your main opponent is a Tau player or like a Votan or something like that, this would be something that you would probably take in your list.
yeah,
All around lists, probably less or so. But
yeah.
moving on to our delicious Outrider unit.
You can
So
in 10th now. You can take them in 6-man squads. We finally got that. Yay! Too bad they lost like half their chainsword attacks. Um,
the
I
opportunity was so good to be able to potentially give these guys power weapons.
yeah, or at least the sergeant. But sadly, they're still the Indominus kit. They never got a standalone kit, so that option never came, and thusly they suck.
Yeah, it's unfortunate they lost that extra
Yeah.
attacks.
Yep. They are
I
bottom of D tier. I'd take them over Van Vets.
Oh
But
yeah, for
yeah,
sure. They have some minor play with the secondary game. They're a harassment unit. Um,
yeah,
in whatever the White Scars list, I don't even remember right top of my head. They kind of get okay-ish, but simply because that's the only thing that's good for.
right.
But we are probably not taking them.
I think they're better than most of the things in D tier, but they're still solidly D tier.
Yeah,
And the same
ATV.
goes for the ATV, which doesn't have enough guns for what it needs to do.
Yeah, I think it's 70 points.
Yeah,
It's
I
expensive.
think it's much lower in D tier though. I probably would put it just above Van Vets. So
But I think you're still taking them in the Outrider unit simply
yeah,
because if you're taking that unit, you have to
might as
give it
well.
as much
Yeah.
oomph as you can.
Yep. So now back onto the better units for us, for everyone. Inceptors. These guys are dirt cheap. You're not taking them as a DPS unit anymore. You're taking them because they can deep strike 3 inches away and shoot a lone operative or something along those lines, or just be obnoxious. They are pretty much S tier.
Yes. You're going to consider these for every list, whether you're taking a Calidus or not.
Yep.
These guys are what disrupts your opponent's plan, honestly.
Yep.
You got to take it. There's no way around it because your opponent's going to do the same thing as I suggested at the beginning of this stream, taking a lieutenant with a combi to sit on your home objective. Because if you don't, then you're not going to be able to deal with it.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly. That brings us to the Storm Speeders. There's 3 versions, obviously, and I don't, to be honest, think that any one of these is better than the other. They're probably all going to fall in the same tier for me, and that's going to be C tier, in my opinion. What do you think?
yeah, yeah. They did get points reductions, but it wasn't enough. I think they need to be closer to like the 90-point range to
Yeah,
consider them.
yeah.
Um,
Because they're
they do
squishy.
have
I mean, they
some
have 11 wounds, but they're only a 3+ save, and they just,
9
I don't know.
toughness. They just don't
Yeah,
have enough oomph.
yeah.
Uh,
And their
so I
buffs
mean,
aren't that great.
something like the hail strike was nerfed to only affect infantry, um, or cavalry units.
Yeah,
Or I should just say no monsters or vehicles.
yeah,
So that there's that, and then the thunderstrike only affects monsters and vehicles.
right.
Um, so they have very refined data sheets on what you're trying to target, and as a Space Marine player, we
We need to
can't.
be, we can't be that specific.
Yeah,
All right, the Hellblasters. I think Hellblasters are still a solid unit. Plasma doesn't delete everything anymore, but these guys shoot on death, which is excellent, including when they die from their own hazardous tests. Um, these guys have a lot of play in the Firestorm detachment, aka Ride and Dirty 2.0. Uh, Gangsta edition. I think these guys are probably high B is what I think. Maybe low A.
I would put them in A.
Yeah,
I would consider them in the right lists.
yeah,
Gladius, you're for sure taking them
yeah.
with.
Firestorm, you're for sure taking them.
Yep.
So
They are a very annoying lit, unit to deal with.
yeah,
So you almost don't want to kill them or at least shoot them because they're going to fire at you. And that is
hmm
something that is very annoying.
hmm
Um, and they still shoot. So you want to kill them because they're going to kill you.
yep.
But if you kill them, they're still going to kill you,
They're gonna
which is feels bad.
they're gonna kill
It's
you whether you kill them or not.
so I feel like that's a unit that
Yeah,
is worthwhile.
yep.
Eliminator squads is 75 points for something that the scouts do better now. But if you're playing some skew lists or thematic lists that um, use a ton of Phobos,
They
you
do
have
have the bolt sniper rifles are pretty decent. They're damage 3 and AP 2. So if you are playing in a meta with lots of annoying characters that you need to kill, I think the bolt snipers are actually better than the last fusils, because the last fusils are only strength 9, and they're not doing you any favors in the anti-tank department.
yeah,
So
like I said, you'd have to be if you're playing like a themed list. I mean, they're great, but the bolter rifles are nice. The instigator carbine, it's
mhm.
not as good as the bolt sniper rifles are, but it
No, it
does
lost
allow
a
you
pip
to
of damage.
reposition.
So
So, but you can reposition.
yeah,
So,
where do you want to put them? I think they're probably B tier, maybe A, bottom of A.
mm, No, I think they're even C.
Really? You think they're
Honestly,
that bad?
they're not bad. That's a solid sheet, but I'm not
I
considering
think
them.
they're all right. I'll put them at the top of C. All right, Eradicators. The once delete everything unit is not quite so delete everything anymore. They fortunately, if you're shooting a monster vehicle, don't care about Oath of Moment because they're re-rolling everything anyway, which is really their only saving grace these days. But I still think they're a pretty decent unit, especially with Biologis. They also are very cheap, um, and I think they're pretty close to A tier, if not A tier. What do you think?
So I think they're an A tier, and here is why. Um, they can be strategic reserved quite easily
Hmm.
without really dampering your 500 point limit.
Yep.
You can take them in smaller units to get into multiple different places, or you can take them in a large squad to get the Biologis to be able to get bypass things if necessary, which will help against non-monster and vehicle
Hmm.
units. But they got really good if you're in the Firestorm. Um,
Yeah, that's true because they get that +1 strength
+1 strength and assault,
and
which
assault
means they can advance and that ups their mobility significantly so
because they
then
only
you
move
don't have to
5.
strategic reserve
Yeah.
so that you get your cover, you
Hmm.
have the line of sights that you need, and then you're going to be able to get the different shots. So your vehicle or your Melta is now where it needs to be, and the four reroll four or the four ups now, and you get to re-roll it. So I think this is a very good take, especially in that. But it's it's got play, honestly. Melta is it's not bad. It's not bad, and this is one of the units that is not affected by the changes to Oath because
Yep.
it just really just doesn't care.
They don't care.
So again, we talked about in the detachment stream, we really need to leverage that in our lists. So I think it's solid A.
Yep.
However, our friends, the Desolation Squad, um,
Oh, they gone.
Games Workshop sold its kits, and unfortunately, they have been nerfed to oblivion.
Yep. They are definitely D tier in my opinion now. Still better than
Very
ours.
top, very top if you get them in the D tier. I think they're probably still C,
Yeah.
but
Bottom of C tier.
yeah,
Yeah.
because they still do all the same things good,
They're just
but they're
super expensive
5 man
and they're
and they're
5 man.
very expensive.
Yep.
That really hurts.
Devastators, on the other hand, got a nice little glow up with the Firestorm detachment because they one of the things that we really liked about Bob and I liked about Devastators is grav cannons on paper look great, but that AP1 really kind of hurts and allows them to sort of bounce sometimes. Um, but Firestorm has a +1 to hit and +1 AP stratagem for 1 CP that really helps those grav devs significantly. I think they're worth considering. I think they're probably a high B tier unit.
That specific loadout,
Yeah,
potentially,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Like you can take 4 las cannons in the unit that has some play
And it's not bad.
in the
Yeah,
Iron Storm. Um, high B tier, I would say mid.
mid. Okay.
Mid.
Yeah, we can put them there. All right. Fire Strike servo turrets. I'm not too keen on this unit, to be honest. It sort of lost some of its luster from ninth, and it's slow, which makes it difficult to utilize well, in my opinion.
Yes, I have seen some high ranking or high finished Black Templars list utilizing them though. so I know that they at least have some play. I haven't personally played with them, but I like the idea of them in Firestorm, giving them assault
Yeah,
so that you give up their mobility a little bit
yeah,
and allow them to fire and get into fire lanes because they are cheap.
yeah.
So um,
Where do you want to put them in here?
they're not a D. They're a C, I think, a
Yeah,
bottom C.
yeah. The Whirlwind, however, is still amazing, and I
Got a
think
point drop.
it got a points drop, which helps a little bit. I think Whirlwinds are probably S tier because just that indirect, being able to sit on a home objective and fire D6 plus 3 strength 8 shots a turn and forcing battle shock tests um, is pretty awesome. I know our friend Orion swears by them. He runs them in every list. I think he runs two. Um, so I think they're probably S tier, or if not, very high A tier.
I'm gonna put. I would say high A tier because of Oath.
Yeah,
These guys also really benefited from Oath.
yeah,
Um,
that's true.
so there is times where they will bounce,
Hmm.
because it is only strength 8.
Yeah,
Um,
but I mean, it's
but
AP2 damage 2. You're shooting it at infantry,
yes,
so it's a
uh,
Space Marine killer. Um, so
these guys are
on
what
to
kill your infiltrators.
yeah, exactly. On to the gladiator tanks. First up is the Valiant.
So I don't. We're considering. I think we mentioned earlier. We're considering these as the BT versions. So
Yeah, you're probably not going to take the regular version for only 5 points more. You can have a free, quote unquote, free multi melta. I think that's 100% worth it every time, unless you just are absolutely strapped for points and you're not in Righteous Crusaders.
yes. So Valiant, especially in the Firestorm, is is good.
Yeah,
So Oath, the change to Oath hurts it.
yeah,
So you don't get that rerolls, but the Firestorm kind of makes up for it a little bit because you get the extra strength
yeah.
to get back into that strength 10 zone
Hmm.
where it's not as necessary.
Right.
And then that's the quantity over quality.
Quality. Yeah,
Um, Plus, you're going to be assault because you're in Firestorm, so you can advance up and you're going to get into that Melta range
yeah,
much easier to get that additional play there. So I think they're a very solid top of B. Um, Not quite A, but I think they're solid in the right list.
yeah. Uh, K-Gun says, late to this, did they rank the Emperor's Champion yet? No, we have not gotten to BT units. We were going to do those last, and they should be pretty quick because they haven't changed. They're still the same. So we wanted to get through the regular Space Marine units first, and then we'll hit that up. So up next is the Lancer, and I don't think there's any doubt that this is probably the best unit in the entire Codex, hands down.
Yeah.
So very top of S tier. You should really have two in every single list. They're that good.
Especially now that you're
Hmm.
going to see a lot of Iron Storm lists out
Hmm.
there. You need something to deal with the vehicles that you're going to be
Hmm.
seeing. I
They
know a
do a
lot of
lot of
our
damage.
they ignore that oath
Hmm.
reroll issue that we have. Yeah,
On the flip side of that coin is the Gladiator Reaper. I think this thing is C tier. It doesn't,
yep.
maybe even D tier. It doesn't do as much as it used to. It does. They did change the name of the ability. It's now Reaping Tally, which makes it lose a lot of points, in my opinion, because the old one, which was Rotating Death, is far cooler sounding than Reaping Tally. So yes, C tier, I think.
Yeah, it's a C tier, and I mean,
It's not bad,
this
but it's
could
not good either.
it could be decent in like Iron Storm, but
Yeah,
we have lots of things in Space Marines that can kill infantry.
yeah. Speaking of which, also in C tier, it's another one of those that's not bad but not good units. I think is the Predator Destructor.
Yeah,
So its brother, though the Annihilator, I think is a little bit better, and it's a cheaper, not as good Lancer. So if you are missing, you just need those points for something else, and you can't fit maybe a second Lancer or something in there, then the Annihilator is worth taking because it's pretty decent. You can reroll damage rolls a one. Nobody likes damage rolls a one, so um, with its las cannons, which is pretty nice. Where do you want to put it in the tier list, Bob?
this one's a tough one, but I think it's going to be towards the top of B.
Yeah,
It's not quite A,
yeah,
uh, because it's going to be in the list, specific lists, because if you're basically taking discounts, if you need to cut some points,
yeah.
or you just don't have a Lancer, which is still probable because,
They're very hard to find.
yeah, no, I'm
Uh,
not selling the Alex.
that's fine. I ordered a top hatch kit off of the internet for my um, uh, for one of my impulsor chassis, so I'm good to go. All right, next up, the Vindicator. I like the Vindicator. I think that I think it's A tier. It's really scary.
Yes, it is. I almost actually used it in my list.
Oh yeah,
Almost. I
yeah.
made the list, and then the leaks were wrong on the aggressors, so I had to cut some stuff. So that's what got cut, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
yeah, it on paper it's very good.
yeah,
Um, it was very very close to taking it because it. One thing that we do have that's kind of difficult for us to deal with is high toughness stuff.
yeah,
High toughness, lots of wound things, elite units. We either have to throw a ton of damage to stuff into them, or we have to put anti-tank weaponry into them, which is not ideal. So, for example, Terminators in the mirror match, we don't really have a good unit to target into them other than Terminators or something likewise. Big blob of Primus Crusader squads. But a Vindicator is an excellent take there.
yeah.
Um, they
Well,
also reroll damage, but
I like it because it's one, you get a lot of shots. It's a
yep.
minimum of 4 shots. And if you're targeting an infantry unit with it, which sometimes you're going to, it's got blast. And you can't tag it in close combat to eliminate its blast. It doesn't care. If you're targeting a 5-man unit, you're now at a minimum of 5 shots. You're probably going to average 7 to 8 shots with this gun, which is really good. The other thing is it's one of the only very high strength 14 weapons in the book. Should you run like one by itself with you know nothing else? No, but pairing it with like 2 lancers, very good in my opinion.
Mhm.
So, moving along then, we are up to the 3 Land Raider variants. Um, all of which are pretty pretty good. I don't think they're quite as good as we had initially hoped they would be, but I still think they have play. Where do you rate these 3 units, Bob?
The Land Raiders, and they can be strong. They can
Hmm.
be very strong. Um, the strongest one, in my opinion, is the Redeemer,
Hmm.
simply because its weaponry is better. Uh, Secondarily, and it hurts me to say that, secondarily, it's going to be the Crusader because it's the cheapest.
Yeah.
Though the Land Raider, the standard bog standard one, it has play too. So because it has the lascans, the Godhammer
Hmm.
lascans, 2 shots.
Yep.
I mean, it has
For,
play. Um,
Also, the
in
standard
my
Land Raider has play in that regard, especially now because it carries 12, which is if it only carried 10, it'd basically be a no point because if we're taking a 10-man squad, now we're out, not able to take characters. So I want to put them in A, but I don't know if they're really A tier or not.
no, I would put them in B.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not considering them in every list. Certainly, I'm not even always considering them in specific lists, but they are a skew unit that
Hmm.
is good with certain lists, like the Primaris Sword Brethren, Terminators, things of that nature, high value things.
Yeah.
And that rock unit, if it goes off, it's going to rock some stuff.
Yep.
It's going to rock some stuff. So, I mean, the unit themselves, the Redeemer, can put out a crap ton of damage.
Hmm.
So, I mean, there's that.
So that brings us to its floating friends, the Repulsor and the Repulsor Executioner. Um, how do you feel about these two units?
They are very, very cheap. They're
Yeah,
very, very cheap for what they do. So I think they don't have the assault ramps, which um,
is unfortunate.
is unfortunate, but they have a lot more guns for
Yeah,
almost 50 to 60 points, depending on cheaper for depending on which one you take
yep.
versus its counterpart. Um,
Yeah, the
I
Repulsor, the
like them.
BT Repulsor is 200 and the Executioner is 235.
I would
So,
take them mid to high B, higher than the Land Raiders. Yes, I know it hurts to say that,
yep,
um, but their value cannot be denied. Especially the Executioner. Their weapon in the right list is very good. Ironstorm loves the Executioner.
yeah. I think the
Um,
Executioner is definitely high B. Honestly, I would put the regular Repulsor below the Land Raiders in B. And that's simply because none of its guns are especially great. You're taking the Rep E for its big cannon. Um, the regular repulsor just has a bunch of mostly low level shooting stuff outside of a, one use Hunter Slayer missile. So um, for that, I think the Land Raiders are better because you're taking the repulsor as a transport.
yeah,
So
you do, but it does give you some las weapons.
yeah. All right, the Venerable Rhino.
D.
Yep. The only unit you're really going to put in this guy is
Tactical.
the tactical squad, and we're not tacticaling anything at the moment. Uh, so yeah, sadly, he is D tier. Uh,
Razorback top of D, or towards the top of D, because at least it has a gun,
yep,
and you can use them with the Crusaders, the counterpart, if you
yep,
want to.
yep, and the Devastator squads fit nicely into that as well.
Yep.
All right, that brings us to the Impulsor, which is no doubt an S tier unit in my opinion because of the things we're going to put in it, namely sword bros. Because you're gonna take if you're taking sword bros, you're probably putting them in an impulsor. What do you think,
Yes.
Bob?
I think it's not just the Sword Brethren. You can
Yeah,
put a lot of different things in them.
yep,
They're
Sternguard,
very,
Hellblasters, all kinds of stuff. So,
assault intercessors,
yep,
a lot of things that are very good for 85 points.
yep,
You get the multi melta.
hmm
Um, you get a missile. In my opinion, I go with the missiles. I like Mordaka, but some people like the invulnerable save. So if you get the 5++ invulnerable save and uphold, that's
Yep.
really strong, admittedly, and very durable. But I like to kill stuff. I'm more aggressive, so I opt for that option.
Yep.
And having more anti-tank is never a bad thing for me. And the nice thing about the missiles is it gives me emergency um, marine killing and emergency horde killing if I need to. So very good for 85 points.
Yep. Next up are the 3 flyers. I struggle to put these in anything above D tier because I think they're all very expensive for how durable they are. And, the Storm Raven may be in C tier, just because you can carry a Dreadnought with it. But I just don't see any use for the other 2 flyers, to be honest with you.
Storm Raven. Okay, so 10th edition, you have to keep everything into reserves
Yep.
until turn 2, so you lose the shooting there. But honestly, that's not really much of a deterrent because it doesn't have like a metric ton of shooting.
Yeah.
But it is very good, very, very good in the Flamestorm detachment if you
Hmm.
go with the Meltas. Um, excuse me.
Because it's fast, so it'll get in Melta
It's
range.
yep, it'll get in Melta range really fast. All of its weapons are going to be assault. So not that it really matters with that because it can move what it wants. But it can get to where it needs to, so it does have some play. Um, in my opinion, you can get within range of something and then um, blast off. I guess the best way is just to put it, um, because then you can also get your Storm Strike missile launcher
Hmm.
shot up to 11, which is a
Hmm.
nice breakpoint.
Yep.
So you're hitting on threes as well. So yeah, I think that one's a C, but all the rest of them are D's. I
Yeah.
just think you just don't get enough guns with them.
Yeah.
The same thing with the Storm Strikes.
Yep. I wish the Storm Talon was in the 130 point range. In theory, they could be good for dealing with lone ops.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I honestly I think it needs to be even cheaper than that, closer to 100 points, because it's pretty squishy. It's only tough 8 with a 3-up save and 10 wounds, and it doesn't really have any guns that are exceptional, and it's pretty limited in what it can take. So.
And it's
Um,
really unfortunate because I really like this model.
It's a
I
pretty cool
have two
model.
of them. I like it a lot. And I feel like this is very Space Marine.
Yeah.
So I've been across these editions and these codexes, and I've been just like, that's one of the first units I look at. I'm like, is it any better? Is it any better? And it's like, come on. Strafing Run kind of does give it a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's too expensive.
So, up next is the drop pod, which has some play with units like Sternguard and Devastator squads, maybe even Infernus Marines, depending on Hellblasters, depending on your what type of list you're running. But do I want to consider it in every list or even a lot of the time? No.
Mhm.
I think it's probably C tier, maybe B tier,
No,
maybe
C
low in B
tier.
tier. Yeah,
So Drop Pod Assault is very good. It's a cheap
yeah,
vehicle that has transport capability, but of note, it is not a dedicated transport.
yeah.
So you can't
You can only take 3.
utilize its best ability to make a drop pod list, which is what I wanted to do
Yeah,
when 10th came out, and I was shut down hard when
yep,
I noticed that. I was
yep.
disappointed.
So, C tier for this guy.
Hammered Fall Bunker, what you have all been waiting for, the
Yep,
best unit in the Codex, right?
right? Not quite, but it's no longer the worst unit in the Codex. Yeah, it gives cover, which is kind of cool. It has its defensive array, which allows it to fire Overwatch for free, and can do so even if you've targeted another unit with that stratagem this turn. Um, and this fortification can only be targeted with that stratagem once per turn. So it no longer, I think, prior to it used to be able to shoot like everything, but it can't do that anymore. It's just
Oh,
Overwatch. Um, it does have interesting fortification rule. It says while an enemy unit is only within engagement range of one or more fortifications of your army, that unit can still be selected as the target of ranged attacks. But each time such an attack is made, unless it's a pistol, subtract one, and then models do not need to take a desperate escape test while falling back from battle shocked. So basically, it lets you can't tag it and like protect yourself from your opponent's shooting. You just take a -1 to shoot at them instead. I think it's C tier. I don't think it's I don't think it's D tier. It's probably bottom of C tier.
yeah.
Um,
It
it
got a
got
very
points.
big discount.
Yeah. So all right. So that is the Codex. That is all the units in the Codex that are relevant to us. Now we'll quickly, as it is after 11, we want to wrap up here, but we will quickly go through our Black Templar units and pop them in there just so you can get a final tier list for Black Templars. Um, so first up is the Crusader Squad. In my opinion, this is an S tier unit. You should consider it in every single list. It's just so good. It has scouts. There are tons of chain swords, power fists, and stupid cheap.
Yeah, 140 points for that is
hmm
ridiculous.
Also, 140 points is another unit, Sword Bros, for 5 of them, and yeah, they got a huge points discount. They got their lightning claws back. We should be taking these guys in every single list. They're absolutely S tier.
I agree.
Um,
Yeah,
Same thing with Helbrecht. Um, whether it's a 5-man or a 10-man, we should probably have Helbrecht in just about every single list. He gets buffed by them so much. 12 attacks with damage 2 is absurd. So especially for 95 points. Okay.
yep,
Um, Gromaldus. Um, I feel like Gromaldus is not S tier only because you really want him with a 20-man Crusader blob. If you're
yep,
not taking a 20-man Crusader blob, you probably want to leave Grimaldus at home. Um,
yes,
so for that, I think he's probably the very top of A tier.
yes. He's a very good unit. He can join a bunch of different things,
If you're
but
taking a 20-man, you're taking Grimaldus. Like that should
yes,
be an auto include
yes.
because he's that good with them. How do you feel about the Emperor's Champion, Bob?
I like him a lot
hmm
with Sword Brethren.
Yeah,
I like him a lot
he's
with
a
Sword
mini
Brethren.
Helbrecht with them because he's got a sweep attack with I think 10 attacks.
Yeah,
They buff him a lot, even though he doesn't give anything back. He's a beat stick that will really amp up the damage output of a 5-man squad.
I don't think he's an S tier. I think
No,
he's A tier
I think he's A
because
tier.
if you are taking Sword Brethren, you're taking a beat stick with it that you
hmm
want to buff. And they discounted him. I think he's 75 points,
I think he's
something like that.
something like that.
Yeah, 75, and then Helbrecht's 90, I think. 95.
Yeah.
Um, so he's very good buff. He's one of the reasons why you can take 5-man units
Yep.
and and
Kill.
still kill whatever you
You
want.
want to? Yeah. Exactly. The Castellan sort of got indirectly nerfed by the fact that the lieutenant is now the same cost as him. Usually, before he was a little bit of a discount for you, which made him a little bit better. Excuse me. Um, but now I'd rate him probably right below the lieutenant at in A tier because if you just want a Combi-weapon instead of whatever the lieutenant offers, he's your guy.
Yeah. I agree with that. The model is very cool
The
though.
model's dope.
S- So
How can you
that's
go?
almost one of the
Can't
reasons why I
can't go
just take
wrong with the
him.
Blanche model.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, our Marshal is again just a different loadout than our Captain model, and I think he fits right there next to that Captain. I don't know if he's got a points discount still or not over the.
No, they evened it out.
Did they? Yeah. So so yeah. All right. So there you have it, guys. There is our full tier list for the Space Marine Codex for 10th edition. Um, I want to thank everybody for sticking around for this. We've had some really great interaction and viewership throughout. I also want to thank our partner, Baron of Dice, who is making some awesome dice. He makes these the exclusive place to buy implausible nature dice. So go check that out. Use discount code IN40K to save a little bit of money and support us at the same time. We have two kinds of dice at the moment. One is our standard red implausible nature dice. They're awesome. They have square corners. And then the other one is our Patreon exclusive dice. So you'll notice a hilariously large price on that, and that's just to prevent non-patrons from buying them. But if you're interested in those dice, become a Patreon with us. We got a lot of great benefits, including access to those dice, free merch for our higher level patrons as well. So check that out. We also have a Discord that's free to everyone with special roles for our patrons. Lots of great activity on there every day. So don't hesitate to come check us out there and join the discussion. That's all we've got for you today. Just a little bit over our normal 2 hour time frame here. So thank you guys again so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.